Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. In this video, we are going to kick off or renew our journey into the Chavot HaLevavot, duties of the heart, but through the eyes of Rabbi Victor Miller, Zatzal. The duties of the heart, originally written by Rabbi Yehuda ibn Pekuda in Arabic, actually. And this is my pocket-sized 2-volume edition, which you can get. The Torah Classics Library and I think it's a Feldheim production. It's not a movie. It's a publication. Let's see who puts this out. I don't know. Yeah, Feldheim. It's Feldheim. So you can get a hold of that. But if you want to kind of get a little bit more sort of bang for your buck, get a hold of this series. It's not completed yet, although it might be. I haven't checked in a while. If it has, let me know in the comments. This is volume 1, volume Aleph, the introduction to what is actually been entitled Duties of the Mind instead of Duties of the Heart in the translation, because the mind and the heart should be one, as we find out when we read through the introduction. And this is an eye-opening series, just as much, if not more, as the Mesilat Yesharim. And, on its own, Duties of the Heart really packs a lot of weight. But when you accompany it with a commentary of such a righteous man who lived up until very recently, who taught principally on Musar, you've got like so much more potential to glean mountains more information out of what you're reading. So much so that my first read through, it took me quite a while to realize that I'd actually already read this. And I had a brother kind of set me on the straight path and go, you're reading the Duties of the Heart. And I was like, no, am I? And I was. It was correct. So I thank you for that, Christopher. Okay, so let's get into it. So we've already done the introduction to the morning audios. If you want to be part of the morning audios and get nearly every day, except Sabbath and high holy days, I send out morning audio classes that can range from about 10 to 15 to sometimes half an hour, where we read through these works. Let me know in the comments and I'll get in touch with you somehow, and either by WhatsApp or Signal or even Messenger, I can send you the morning audios. I had one guy contact me recently and he said, it's been 13 days and I've received 13 audio sound bites. Can you at least maybe just send me one once a week? And I'm like thinking to myself, how many times a day are you going to eat? 3 times a day? Okay. So really, you should be getting minimum 3 lectures a day. I mean, they're only short lectures. And I think to myself, how long, does he think he can go without food? Does he think he can go without food for a week? You can, but it'd be rough. And the funny thing is, in the spiritual realm, we're just as much as in a disheveled state as if we'd have gone without food for a week. And, okay, sure, this guy's probably learning other things that are outside, what I'm doing, of course. But, it's 10 minutes, At max, sometimes they go 30, 35 minutes. You can listen to these on the way to work in a car or while you're getting ready in the morning. And I said to him, I'm not going to test you on them. Just listen to what you can. But it's funny how you go on a journey and you start sort of seemingly kind of progressing, and then you kind of sound out with the rest of the world in terms of beginning to share some of what you're learning, and you realize you're like, what you are learning from where other people are sitting or standing, it's overkill, it's too much for them. And so invariably, not always, but invariably that's a good sign that you're growing. People go, well, that's too much for me. And these are the words of life. This is the Torah. Should be, everything else should be centered around this, centered on this. But so it's interesting. Okay, so the introduction, Page 37, if you've got a copy. If you don't, go and get yourself a copy. If you're in Australia, $42.50. I picked this up from Gold's World of Judaica. If you're in the US, it's probably half that price. It's a very thin volume. The first one's quite a thin volume. Hashem is the one and only, part 1, or number 1. Hashem is the one and only, He's Echad. The author states, "Blessed is Hashem, Elohim of Israel. To Him alone can we apply the true concept of the word one. Any other use of the word one does not end up being unique. For instance, a person may say there is one sun, but upon reflection, he realizes that there are thousands of similar heavenly bodies, some of which may be far larger than the sun. A person may say that Moshe Rabbeinu was one man, but he really means Moshe was one man among many. When we speak about Hashem, whatever we say about Him is unequaled in the universe. There is just one. There is a genuine one. So we can't say that there's anything similar to Hashem in all creation, particularly in the fact that He fashioned everything. Even the very fabric of the substance of the existence of life itself is derived from Hashem. But some people have these sort of weird notions that, maybe Hashem's kind of the lost son of a godly class of super beings. They kind of think He's like Superman or something. But no, Hashem is unique. He's uniquely unique. This is why the concept of the Trinity is such a terrible idea, because it takes things that are, obviously a reality. The Mashiach is a reality, the Ruach HaKodesh is a reality, and Hashem Himself is a reality. But it takes these concepts and it twists them into something that is not there. By having Hashem take up a third of 3 equal spaces of something, that's wrong. That's going off the track. That's an heretical view of, and flies in the face of the whole concept of Hashem being echad, Hashem being one. You can't have Him sharing, equal portion of a pie with 2 other equal portions. Or even if He's the larger of those 2 portions, He's occupying a space with 2 other things. Like that gets singled out as being kind of mentioned on an equal platform, an equal plateau, so to speak. And you can't put anything with Hashem. The fact that you're putting something with Hashem or 2 other things with Hashem, what are you doing? The early church father, Augustine, was walking along the beach thinking about the concept of the Trinity. He came across a man who was running from the beach to the water, and he was filling up a bucket of water from the tide that was coming in. He was running inland to a hole in the ground. He was pouring the water from the bucket into the hole in the ground, and he was running backwards and forwards and doing that, going like this, no tomorrow. And this made Augustine curious, and he asked him, he said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm pouring this bucket of water from the ocean into this hole to see if I can pour the ocean into this hole." And so it was Hashem's way of giving this early church father this, sounding this alarm, saying, this whole concept, why are you wasting your time thinking about this concept? It's not a concept, and it only will give rise to things that were going to lead you away from true things, true foundational things. He is the earliest in existence. Ever thought about that? He is the earliest in existence. He has always been in existence. We came into existence, as did our world, but for Hashem, there is no beginning and no end to His existence. He continues forever to do kindness. His kindness never stops. And there's a note here. At this point, the author of the Kavod HaLevavot begins to address one of the most important topics, the unity of creation and its relationship to the oneness of the Creator. Number 2, the testimony of creation. He created all things that exist as a sign of His oneness. Everything in the world speaks about the oneness of Hashem. How so? This is because the world is like a great machine in which all the parts are related to each other and cooperate with each other. And so this is something that may not be readily evident to you, or at least carried around the forefront of your mind, is that when we look at nature and we look at the world, we see that everything is built as like a well-functioning machine that cooperates with each other. Such a machine clearly has unity of purpose. When we look around, we see that everything in the world cooperates. The sun cooperates with the earth to produce rain. The rain cooperates with the oceans because from the oceans we get the water that the sun draws up by evaporation to bring rain on the world. The wind cooperates because the winds carry the clouds of water vapor from the surface of the oceans and bring it to the land where it falls as rain. So this is why clouds exist, because essentially the clouds bring in the rain deep inland and allow places on continents that are very far from the coast to receive copious amounts of water, and just places in general to spread this life-giving water that's going to nourish the land and cause vegetation to grow. Even if there is a volcano, it is cooperating. The volcano spews up lava from the bowels of the earth, producing new materials that spread out for miles on the surrounding countryside. These new materials enrich the soil so that when the rain falls, new vegetation can grow. And you've seen probably loads of pictures, National Geographic pictures and videos of this black soil and these very rich vegetation that's growing out of this, recent lava flow that has now turned into this very rich and a soil that has a potential to grow, the most healthiest of plants and trees and fruits and things like that, fruit trees. Each morning we say, He makes peace and creates everything. Why are we associating peace with the creation of the world? Hashem created the world so that all of its forces are at peace. If they were to clash and collide with each other, the world could not exist. Instead, Hashem makes peace between everything in the world, and all His creations cooperates for His purpose. He made creations as a testimony to His might. When we hear thunder, it reminds us of Hashem's might. The great waves of the ocean rush onto the beach, serve many purposes. The most important purpose is to testify to His might. When David HaMelech saw waves, he was moved to say, quoting Tehillim 93:4, more than the roars of many waters, mightier than the waves of the sea, you are mighty on high, Hashem. He was saying, it is from these mighty waters that I understand how mighty Hashem is on high. His analogy wakes up our sleeping minds to feel the greatness of Hashem as we visualize the scene of waves rushing up upon the shore and imagine their mighty roar. The same image serves to remind us of Kol Rosh Gadol, the sound of the great noise of the singing of the heavenly angels. And so all the creation of the world are testifying to their Creator, to this purpose, or to His purpose. Growth in action. This is a little section called Growth in Action that pops up in this series. The orange. So now we're going to look at the orange. And so the orange tree alone is, more than sufficient evidence of a case for creation. So if you ever want to argue a case for creation against somebody who believes in evolution, you should be able to just merely confine your argument to describing the nature and the life cycle of an orange tree, and you should be able to wipe the floor with your opponent and let them draw from anything that they want. And we're going to find out shortly when we read this following section. Although most people take the orange, delicious fruit for granted, it is actually a marvelous creation which testifies to the wisdom of its creator. The outer color is beautiful, but directly under the peel, the orange is colorless. Clearly, the purpose is to attract people by showing them that the fruit is ripe and ready to be eaten and enjoyed. The bright orange color of the ripened fruit is easily noticeable against the green background of the tree. So before there was OH&S, Occupational Health and Safety, before there was high vis, vests, there was the orange, which is it's the color of an orange high vis color, and it sits on the tree when it's ready to be eaten. It goes that color, and it contrasts itself to the rest of the array of colors all around it, so that it will stick out and let you know I'm ready to be eaten. It has a thin plastic cover which protects the fruit against insects and elements. I don't know if you ever thought of that. The skin itself is a sealed, protecting it from the elements to a degree. After a period of time, it will expire. But even something that we refrigerate or put in a freezer still has a time of expiry. But this jacket that each orange has enables it to have a chance to be eaten. Because of its jacket, the orange is hermetically sealed and can sit on the table for many days without spoiling. As you eat the orange, notice its seeds, which have no color. Coloring the seeds would have been a waste, since there is no need to make them attractive to us. Effectively, the seeds have no color because Hashem doesn't want us to pay attention to them. You spit them out and the seeds take care of themselves. What does that mean? It means that this seed that is colorless and tasteless goes into soil, and if it's goes in deep enough, or it's the right type of soil and has the right conditions, it has a self-perpetuating mechanism to be able to continue on and bring in a species after its own kind. And so it's a sort of a self-perpetuating sort of process, meaning that this colorless, tasteless, tiny little seed has like an encyclopedia amount of information on every single seed. And not only that, if the situation is appropriate, it will know to kick into gear, to do its thing, to self-perpetuate it after itself, and begin to take root and grow later into a complex tree that bears fruit. And so, this is like more awe-inspiring and more fascinating, than a supercomputer, or, at least some sort of TV, how a TV operates. It's just, it's more complex and more beautiful than an insect is more complex and more intricate in terms of its detail and what it can achieve and do than a Black Hawk helicopter. You look at the fine legs of an insect and how they can actuate and do its job. How can man create something? They talk about nanotech. They're kind of, man has been playing around for a few decades now in this field of technology. So maybe they can get there one day, but you look at just creation, which has been around for a long time. That in itself is a form of advanced technology in a way. It's biological, but it's it just has these codes in it that knows when to do and what to do things. It's a tiny little seed that we just chuck in the bin. You're chucking away when you spit a seed in the bin, like. It's like you're spitting the plans and the power to bring forth, something that is complex as a helicopter, like, or an airplane. It's just crazy if you start really thinking about it. And this is what I love about Rabbi Victor Miller. He really gets you to start thinking about, everyday things, and you go, yeah, that's crazy, actually. I never really thought about it like that. I never really gave it the attention or the amount of thought that it deserves to have. And I've been a little bit flippant with Hashem's creation. I haven't really sat down and really marveled at Hashem's creation like a person should. I haven't thought, I don't think in-depthly enough about things. And chances are, if you don't think about in-depthly about something in one area, you're not going to have a mind to want to think deeply about something in another. And that's going to rob you of intimacy in relationships, because you're not going to be able to really think in an in-depth and detailed way of your partner, or want to sort of know them intimately in a deep way. Everything's going to be sort of surface level for you. What kind of existence is that? It's just like a non-existence, but you're alive, but you're just kind of like, you don't think about anything. And this is why wicked people don't like to think too much about something, because then they might get an attack of conscience. Anyway, I'm getting off the track. Effectively, the seeds have no color because Hashem doesn't want us to pay attention to them. We spit them out. The seeds knows how to take care of themselves. Once they fall on the ground, they know what to do. The seeds are bitter to discourage you from eating them together with the rest of the fruit. These thoughts about the orange are but an indication of the elaborate planning and design underlying the whole world. And so the intent in the creation of the orange is not only that you should enjoy the orange, but you should learn from its greatness. You learn from it the greatness of the Creator. And this is why doing a bracha before you eat that's appropriate to the food that you're about to eat is a really good thing to do, because it reminds you, because you have the custom of doing a bracha before you eat, it reminds you to think about things potentially like that. Otherwise, you're just eating blindly, and you're just eating to sate hunger or for the pleasure of the taste. And so you're missing out on one of the crucial aspects of why Hashem, created nice tasting food, is to have you be refreshed by a new thought of Hashem's greatness in His beautiful array and detail and diversity of provisions that He gives us to make life enjoyable. But most people don't even think about that. Their mouth waters because they want to experience the beautiful taste, and that's an aspect of it. There's no argument, but the Creator doesn't even come into their mind when they're eating. They just go, "Oh, yeah, I'm eating. It's great." That's it. Not much else going on. Wherever you look, you will be amazed at nature testifying to the greatness of Hashem. This is why Hashem is described here as originating new things in the world, kiddushim, with His creation, and that is why He made them, to testify about His wisdom and His great goodness. There's a notation here. The author now proceeds to illustrate this point with some verses from Tehillim. These verses are essential. Everybody should study them and apply them every day. The first one comes to us from Tehillim 145:4. Every generation will praise your works, and they will speak of your might. And essentially, in watching this video and seeing me talk about this subject, I'm fulfilling that aspect of speaking of Hashem's might, and based on thinking about an aspect of creation and giving Him praise for it in that way. And by you listening to this video, you are a partaker of that fulfillment of that passage as well, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. It's great to know that you're doing something that has been mentioned in the scriptures as something that a person should do if they want to do the right thing, and you're kind of doing it. You go, "Oh yeah, I'm at least doing that." That's a good sign. All your works. The next one. All your works praise you, Hashem, and your pious ones bless you, and that is from again Psalm 145, verse 10 through 12. In this world, there are two testimonies to Hashem. Nature testifies, that's what we've been talking about, and pious men, Hasidim, people that go above and beyond within the nation of Israel. So these two things, so creation itself and righteous people within the nation of Israel. Righteous people in general, I will also go so far as to say, but that's not what the text says. The Hasidim speak of Hashem because He has called upon them to do so. You shall be my witnesses. The witnesses can't keep quiet because they want the world to know. And this is one of the reasons I started doing these videos and these audios, is because it was like I was being made privy to something, and it would have felt like a crime not to let everybody know what I was finding out. And so I naturally, and I'm not really much of a somebody who's got the gift of the gab. I'm not. There's way better teachers out there than me, But I thought, well, I've got to share it somehow, so I've got to give it a go. So over time I've kind of got a little bit better at doing this stuff. But I didn't necessarily want to be on camera. I didn't want to, I like to write. Writing is the thing that I really enjoy doing. But I thought, man, I really got to get this stuff out here and get it out as soon as I can. We have these platforms available to us, so why not use them for good? The witness can't keep quiet because they want the world to know. They open their mouths to testify, Hiro Yisrael, from Deuteronomy 6:4. The Hasidim use every opportunity to praise Hashem, but there is also the testimony of nature, which is speaking all the time. So, if you have a shortage of righteous people, nature's always there, and everything that it does in its own natural course of what it has to do is a testimony to the greatness of Hashem's power, and uniqueness. And so there are testimonies from both nature and the Hasidim, all of which are cooperating to show the world that there is a creator. They speak of the glory of your kingdom and they tell of your might. Now, what is the purpose of all of this? To make known, that is to give knowledge of the power, give knowledge of power, give knowledge of his power to the people. That is to make people understand his power and the glory and the splendor of his kingdom. Here, David HaMelech revealed to us an important lesson. Everything in the world is made for the purpose to give knowledge to mankind. Knowledge about Hashem, his greatness, his wisdom, his power, and his kindness. Once you have absorbed this principle, you must avoid wasting your lives by ignoring it. You must utilize the world in which we live for the purpose of recognizing Hashem. If we open our eyes and start thinking along these lines, we will discover that nature all around us has a wealth of wisdom. And this is what I felt like. I was like, when I heard the information about the orange tree, I was like, oh, what? How many orange trees have I seen? How many times I've eaten an orange? And I haven't even begun to think about half the things that are being shared in those couple of paragraphs about the orange tree. I think I read it elsewhere too, because there's another couple of times where Rabbi Victor Miller talks about the orange tree and different, in some of his different books. There's also a video online on YouTube where he talks about the orange as well, or apple, I think. And I just was like blown away. I'm like, I've been acquainted with this for so many years, and I just don't even think about it. And I'm thinking, well, how whipped, how kind of, bland and downtrodden and sorry have I become that I'm going through life and I'm not seeing the exquisite beauty of Hashem at every turn. I'm just kind of walking around and going, like I'm not really living. I'm like the Walking Dead. And so much of us are doing that. We're just like, rather than like, oh my gosh, it's an orange. Show me the orange. And you start peeling the skin off and you go, yeah, look, there's no color inside. And then you pull away these almost like ready to go compartments of an orange. If you pull an orange apart, it has these little compartments that rip off from one another and they've got skin on them. So your fingers don't get wet even once you pull the pieces off. It all has a sort of a numbered amount of pieces in sections. And so you can give your neighbor a piece. It's like perforated pieces ready to go in an orange. And that even isn't even mentioned in that section on the orange. But that part of it alone is like, oh my gosh, nature, man can't even create like a beverage or a consumable food that perpetuates after itself, that comes pre-packaged in the way it just grows of its own accord. This is insanity. I don't know what, and if you're kind of watching this and you're kind of like still bored, man, check your pulse, buddy. Check your pulse. I don't know what to do for you if you're still flatlining on this. It's like, oh, whatever, I'm not impressed. Wow, okay. It's like talking to a dead person. How can you impress a dead person? You can't, because they're dead, But I'm not dead, I've got a pulse. Yeah, okay. You're animated, I'll give you that. Once we've absorbed this principle, we must avoid wasting our lives ignoring it. I think I already read that. Now, most people are unaware that this is a message of the Ashrei. Yeah, so if you start, let me just go back a few more sentences. If we open our eyes and start thinking along these lines, we will discover that nature all around us has a wealth of wisdom. Now, most people are unaware of this. unaware that this is the message of the Ashrei. The Ashrei prayer is from Psalms, actually. It comprises part of our morning prayers, and it's praises, essentially. So it's Ashrei is praiseworthy, essentially, something that is worthy of praise. Ashrei are those who dwell in your house, may they always praise you. Selah. Praiseworthy is the people for whom this is so. Praiseworthy is the people whose Elohim is Hashem. Psalm of praise by David. So the word praise is like a trunk of a tree in this whole section, this whole stanza of the morning prayer. And it just goes through everything. Hashem is great and exceedingly lauded. His greatness is beyond investigation. So, somebody says, well, you keep saying that Hashem's so great. I think we'll launch an investigation into this, to see if this is true. Within a few hours of the investigation, or even a few minutes, they'll be like, what is the point of doing this? This is like, it's like launching an investigation to see if the sky's blue on a clear day at lunchtime. Why are you going to waste funds investigating if that's true? It's there. So the Ashrei is fantastic, very important part of your morning prayers. And in the Orthodox Jewish world, they recite it 3 times a day. It says here, which we say 3 times a day. The verses of this psalm are telling us that the world is made for a purpose, to recognize Hashem, not to just recognize that He is here in the world, but to recognize His attributes. As the Rambam tells us in Hilkot Yesod HaTorah, chapter 1, verse 7, once we start looking into everything in this world, we realize that it is a wisdom that is so deep that there is no bottom to it. The more anyone investigates scientific matters, he sees that there is no end to the wisdom of Hashem in every little detail. For example, the atom is so complicated that scientists say it's a new and mysterious continent whose outer edges they have only begun to explore. So somebody who's really into science and really up there and looking into some heavy scientific principles, how can they not be enamored by a vastly superior and sophisticated and complex, initiator of all these things that are just working in complete unison with one another in the actual makeup of creation itself, and be curious about the origin of how this was all architectured and planned and drawn up and then commenced into being. It's not the fact that all creation is sitting here looking at us, it's the fact that it all is living and it's all perpetuating and working and it's moving. It's not just a still picture. You can create, I make models. I've got one here. This is something I do in my spare time. It engages me with my son. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's a shot of some IDF soldiers who have stumbled across a fallen comrade there. I don't know if you can see him there very well in this video. It's quite dark in here. I've got barbed wire there. It took me a few weeks to put it together. Quite realistic. These IDF soldiers are from the 6-Day War sort of era. Some sort of drums there. But, I created that. It looks detailed, looks impressive. You'll sit there and you'll look at it. But Hashem, He's created everything to grow, to form, and to actually move and exist. We can just paint a picture or create a sculpture. Man has begun to animate these through forms of robotics, and it's getting more sophisticated every year. And indeed, nothing that man puts his hand to will be beyond his ability to achieve eventually. But that should be a testimony to the fact that the Creator exists, that mankind's been able to create their own worlds and be able to create sophisticated robots that look human, and smell human, and and speak like a human, and even think like a human. We've created these simulations, these worlds where you can come in and have an impact in these worlds in real time and leave and come back in the world. And Player One, I think that movie, that Spielberg film, this should all be huge testimony to the fact that there is a creator. Then some people kind of grab that and take it too far and say, we're living in a simulation, man. And they get all the sort of their concepts from Hollywood, and they get their theology and their religion from Hollywood, and their religion is technically, it's the Matrix, and so they kind of run with it and go in a really far direction, the opposite way. But you just simply just go, we have the material here that's still available to us, that was available largely. It's still, much of it is available, though we've lost much. There's still enough there for you to kind of go back and read these things, look at life, look at creation, and go, okay, I get it. I'm starting to get it. Rather than come up with these, lizard man concepts, chemtrail, and put on the tinfoil hat. This is real. This is, and this causes you to be aware of your Creator much more. The gift of wisdom. This is part 3. The greatest of all the good things that Creator bestowed on these servants of His that can speak. The greatest of all the good things that the Creator bestowed on those servants of His that can speak. Hashem has all kinds of servants who express themselves in different ways, but only human beings have the power of speech. Some animals can mimic speech, but a lot of times they don't even know what they're saying, It's like when you can pronounce a language, but you might not necessarily read a language, but you might not necessarily know what the words mean. The trees give praise to Hashem in their own language, as David Melech says in Tehillim 96:12. Then all the trees of the forest will sing with joy. We know forests don't sing. They don't show joy like a human being shows joy. But in their way, through the fact that they grow upright and they tower over man, and the limbs of their trees fan out like open arms, and the actual growth of a tree is similar to the ancestral tree of a person as their ancestry rolls on generation after generation. It forms kind of the image of a tree. And so man has a very close relationship to a tree. The animals also testify to Hashem, but men who are able to speak have the potential to be His most important servants. And so Hashem gave them His greatest gift, the gift of wisdom, to enable them to fulfill that potential. So not only can a man move and act, he's a lot more sort of able to move more acutely than a tree, even though a tree over time will slowly grow. It's sort of almost like its movement's not controlled. A man can punctuate what he's doing with verbiage. He can speak. He can give commentary and give life and meaning to what he's doing, even in an instant when a person's not sure what he's even starting to do. What he's going to do may not make sense until the end of what he's done. But a person can start to commentate on what he's doing and explain to other people, and they go, okay, right. So from the get-go, they're going to know, okay, this guy's doing something for a purpose. After having created them with the faculties of intelligent perception and deep understanding, that great gift is wisdom. Hashem created man with the ability to speak and to think. And for such an individual, there is no greater gift than wisdom. Hashem has also given man the tools by which he can acquire that great gift of wisdom. Those tools are the faculties of perception, analytical intelligence, and understanding and insight. This wisdom is the spiritual spark of their lives and the light of their intellect. Wisdom is the light of man's existence. With wisdom, he founded the world, according to Mishlei 3:19. Not only did Hashem give us life, he gave us the power of speech and rational thought. But even more, he created the world with wisdom, and he gave us access to that wisdom. And the wisdom that brings them to earn Hashem's goodwill, like Avraham Avinu. He showed himself to be a standout in his generation, and it literally got Hashem's attention. Like this guy was a guy who bucked the current and was willing to actually go out on a limb many times, even risking his life and his reputation, to stand on the truth that he was slowly being revealed to him. And he was, at every turn, he was faithful to the little bits of truth that Hashem was revealing to him as he began to grow and become more confident. And so Hashem grew with him and gave him the appropriate tools for the size of the job that was beginning to emerge in Avraham Avinu's role. We are in this world to earn Hashem's goodwill towards us, as David HaMelech says in Tehillim 49, to fulfill your will, O Elohim, is my desire. The author is telling us here that the most important way to find favor in the eyes of Hashem is through wisdom. Wisdom doesn't just mean knowing things, it means being aware of the presence of Hashem in this world, as David HaMelech says in Psalm 111:10. The highest of wisdom is the fear of Hashem. This doesn't mean we have to be in a state of fear. It means that we have to be aware that the presence of Hashem is everywhere. That realization is the pinnacle of wisdom. The more a person studies Hashem's gift of wisdom, the more he will come to understand that Hashem is demonstrating his presence at all times, everywhere. But because none of us, or very few of us, have thought to stop and to look at everything that we're being fed over the years, we don't think that there's anything wrong. To stop, we think everything's okay. And then all of a sudden, through some divine favor, somehow, Hashem decides to stop us in our tracks and drop us something that gets our attention. And then we start sort of making a clean spot, as it were. And then we're going, oh my gosh. And we keep pulling back, and it keeps, getting more and more like it's, literally like, if you use that Matrix analogy, it's literally like swallowing that red pill. I don't know whether it was the red pill or blue pill. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments. No, don't let me know. You can. It's up to you. The realization is the pinnacle of wisdom. The more a person studies Hashem's gift of wisdom, the more he will come to understand that Hashem is demonstrating his presence at all times, everywhere. Thus, the wise man, the Chacham, finds it impossible to feel that Hashem is far away. He is right there and always testifying as to his presence. So, if you're really aware of Hashem's presence all the time, like you're really aware, how easy is it going to be for you to do something wrong? It's going to be really hard, because you're standing right there. You can't do it. It's like doing something really dodgy in front of a parent, or one of your children. You think, well, if my child was here, I would never do this. Well, imagine that your child's here to the point where it's indivisible from reality. You think the child's right there. If that's what you've got to do to get you to stop doing something wrong, how much are you willing to sacrifice and to do to stop doing something wrong? Oh, probably 70%, 80% maybe. Now you want to be 100%. You want to be like, I'll do whatever I can do to create a scaffold to prevent me from falling, so to speak. It is through this thought that the Chokam will gain the greatest favor in the eyes of Hashem. That is why the text above stated, wisdom is the greatest of all benefits. We have said that the pinnacle of the great gift of wisdom, Chokmah, is the awareness of Hashem. It also includes the awareness of all the truths of the world, such as the awareness of the Olam Haba, the world to come, the knowledge of what is right and what is wrong. This means that the Chokam covers all the knowledge included in the Torah, as well as that knowledge which appears to us as being outside of the Torah. There is no greater gift than Chokmah, than wisdom, but that gift requires an effort on our part. Our forefather Abraham didn't have the Torah, but gained the Chokmah, the wisdom from the outside world. So this is, why I keep going back to Abraham, because he didn't have anybody to mentor him. He just looked at the sky. He looked at the stars. He looked at the winds. He looked at the rain. He looked at the sun. He looked at the moon. He looked at the sea and the tides. And he thought, hang on a second. There's something going on here. There's something beckoning us, and then there's this other thing that's going to rob us of that awareness. There's something going on. There's a palace on fire. And so if there is a palace that's on fire, where's the king? Where's the king of this palace? And why is it on fire? And if it's on fire, we need to get out, or we need to put that fire out, and we need to alert the king. Where's the king? I'm looking for the king. But nobody was looking for that. Nobody even noticed anything was on fire. Everybody thought everything was okay. Everything's going all right. And then inevitably something happens in life that you don't understand because you don't care about what's behind the reasoning and the veil of things. So you can go for many years, not caring about all these things, and then something will happen. A tragedy will strike, and if it hasn't struck, it will. It's just a question of time. And then you'll be like, I don't understand. But if you were to pursue wisdom and you were to look at creation the way Hashem wanted you to look at creation, it would lead to other things. It would lead to knowledge, understanding. It would lead to wisdom, and then ultimately to the fear of Hashem. And you would know that everything that happens is for the good and is by the direction of the guiding hand of Hashem, whether it be for good or whether it be for bad. What do we know what's good or bad? Because sometimes what's good can be bad and what's bad can be good. So who are we to be able to tell good from bad? Sure, we can most of the time, but some of the time, even more than some of the time, something that appears good is actually bad. There's millions of men who, maybe want to do something that they know is bad, but it feels good. And so they don't have a strong enough argument to do the right thing because they haven't bothered to look into what's really going on. They've just rather allowed themselves to be consumed by the distraction. But then something eventually bad happens, and then they've got nowhere to hold on to. They've got no refuge. And so this is why a lot of people end up taking their own lives. There was a very creative spark of a man, Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan the Barbarian and Red Sonja and Solomon Kane. All these great heroic, sword and sorcery adventure characters. He was brimming with creativity. He was a smart man. He was fit. He would box. He was a boxer. He was successful. A successful author of his day to a certain degree in his time. And he was very closely attached to his mother. His father was a doctor, and his mother passed away from an illness she was battling. And he just took his own life, because all of a sudden now, he's invested his whole life into fantasy and into science fiction and adventure, and and very successful to a degree. He was certainly a standout success for where he lived in his town. And people say, wow, this guy's somebody, but because he spent no time investing his curious mind and his quick mind and his intelligence into pursuing deeper things. And, even at one time he came into contact with a lady who, he really liked, and she was a Christian church-going lady, and she challenged him on some of his ideologies and his beliefs. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to break into that, to break that shell, that clipper. And they went their separate ways, and she was devastated to find out not long after hearing of their exchange and their spending time together, because she had to move on because he wasn't willing to adopt certain base standards for her Christian mindset. Then on hearing that his mum passed away, he went out to his car and he shot himself. He committed suicide. He left this world. Because he just simply wasn't using, or never thought to use any of his faculties that Hashem had given him, sharp mind, creative mind to look into, and some of his letters, you can read his he did think about God. He did think about creation. He did think about evolution, and he was somebody that believed in creation. He didn't believe in evolution, and he would often, him and H.P. Lovecraft, who that would correspond with him, they would have arguments about that. And you would think that Robert E. Howard's obviously got a godly position, but by looking at the world and learning from things and causing them to be a springboard to get you to become deeply involved with Creator and be committed to the Creator's charge, it's going to help you when things get rough. And that, that's not the only reason we do it. There's we do it because it's Hashem's will, whether it be a good result or a bad result. But these are one of the things that can help with a person. You hear people and somebody passes away at a funeral, and you hear somebody say, I think that poor family was robbed at the loss of their father at that particular age. I think they were robbed. That's an attack on the sovereignty of Hashem. And that's forbidden. You can't do that. And invariably, these comments come out of the mouths of Christians. You can't say that somebody was robbed of anything, because that's an attack on the way Hashem manages the world. It just is. You can't say that you've been wrongly treated. Now, in a worldly perspective, you can say that this business has handled my case wrongly, but you can't go and shake your fist at heaven and say, Hashem has dropped the ball. But in the natural, you can say that so you can then follow a course of action to rectify having been mishandled in that way. But in terms of it affecting your overall ideology, that Hashem has dropped the ball, that's an attack on Hashem's sovereignty. That's Kilul Hashem. It's you're attacking Hashem. You're saying that He mismanaged something. Everything that happens for a reason. You might not know what that reason is, but there's a reason there. Hasatan and the dark forces, the Sitra Hura, the dark forces, they can only work in accordance to how much an individual allows them opportunity to affect their lives. A person, if a person's walking in Hashem and at the highest level that a human can attain, if that person so chose, they could call a legion of angels the same way Rabbi Melech Yeshua could call a legion of angels to rescue him from being crucified. But once you've become more aware of the will of Hashem, you don't care about that stuff anymore. You don't care about being able to rescue yourself to have another year of life. If it's Hashem's will that it's your time, or there's something there's a greater thing that has happened, you're more attuned to that than the immediate effect of somebody being taken from a family. So it requires effort. Our father Abraham didn't have the Torah, but he gained Chokhmah from the outside world. The world was one of the means by acquiring Chokhmah, because Hashem made the world, and therefore the world testifies to Hashem's principles when it is properly studied, as we will see later in chapter 2, Shah Habakina. So I'll read that again, because that's just the best line you could hear. The world is one of the means for acquiring Chokhmah, wisdom, because Hashem made the world, and therefore the world testifies to Hashem's principles when it is properly studied. The world therefore testifies to Hashem's principles when it is properly studied. Beautiful. Review. With the above insight, let us revisit these important thoughts of the Kavod Halavavot. The wisdom is the spirit spark of their lives and the light of their intellect. This wisdom is the spirit spark. It sounds, am I talking about Native American Indians now? No. This wisdom is the spiritual spark of their lives and the light of their intellect. By working to take possession of Hashem's great gift of Chokhmah, people can bring spirit into their lives and light into their minds If they do not do so, they will be darkening their lives. By working to take possession of Hashem's great gift of wisdom, people can bring spirit into their lives and light into their minds. So notice it's bringing a light into your mind so that when bad things do occur, which inevitably do happen, it changes your perspective. It shifts your way you're looking at this bad thing that's happening to you. And this is the thing that should bring you the most joy in many respects, is the new mindset and attitude that you have, because now you can face life, with a good, strong, resolve, because you can see, well, I might not understand it, but Hashem understands it, and if I can, I will understand it too. But if I can't, that's okay, because I know Hashem's got that covered. There hasn't been a breach in the heavenly realm. There hasn't been an attack. And there's been no emergency or alarm bell gone on in heaven. Hashem is not reactionary. That's called, what do they call it? It's a form of theology. Emergency. I think it's emergency crisis. That's right. It's called crisis theology. And we don't believe in crisis theology. A red alert alarm has never gone off in the heavenly realms. And wisdom brings them to earn Hashem's goodwill. In addition, Chokhmah brings men to be accepted by Hashem. Hashem accepts accepts those people who have gained Chokhmah and who live by that Chokhmah. In addition, Chokhmah protects them from the retribution and the wrath of Hashem in this world and the world to come. When people are lacking in this Chokhmah, bad things may happen to them, both in this world and the world to come. Hashem sent them into this world with the mission of acquiring and applying His Chokhmah. So you can apply that to everybody. Hashem sent, unless the child's neshama has to come back because it still has to be born within a Jewish family. A lot of times the only outstanding thing is that the person never grew up in a Jewish family from birth. They might have been a convert, and so to fulfill that deficiency, a neshama may, by way of Gilgul, of soul transmigration, may come back to the earth in the form of a baby. Then when the baby's still young, it passes away. And people will say, well, that's a tragedy. A 1-year-old passed away and it was an Orthodox Jewish family. You fool! That neshama was brought to the world so that it can have on its records and on its level of things it fulfilled, that it was actually born in a Jewish family, because in its previous life it was a convert, and it missed out on being able to say that it was actually biologically born in a frum family. You don't know. There's so many things that can be happening. There's so many moving parts. This is why when people throw their arms up in the air and they say, "Well, I don't, I'm not doing it anymore. That's not right." How do you know it's not right? It just doesn't feel right, And even if it doesn't feel right, even if you can say it's not right for this reason and this reason, you may not have covered everything. Who are you to make the assumption that you're not deserving of some form of punishment? We're the easiest on ourselves, but we're the hardest on other people. We tend to be more hard on other people, but when it comes to ourselves and we put the mirror up to ourselves, we tend to have this natural aptitude to show ourselves more leniency. That's not how we should be. We should be harder on ourselves and lenient on others, because we don't see what goes on behind closed doors. We don't see what all the things that they've had to deal with. And maybe the version that we're seeing of that other person is one that should get an Academy Award, considering all the things that they've been through and what they are like. But how they are, I shouldn't have said Academy Award, but some sort of, major recognition. The fact that they're actually still alive is amazing. The fact that they can, at least dress themselves with what they've gone through is amazing. You don't know what they've gone through. So the mere fact that they're even being able to do anything that's correct could possibly be an amazing feat. You don't know them. You know you, but we're always giving ourselves a way out, some sort of form of leniency. It's just it's the natural way for the heart to choose leniency and the easy way. People who neglect this mission must expect to be chastised to remind them not to be lazy. So Hashem sent people into the world on a mission to acquire the application of wisdom. We just looked at that. We talked about that. People who neglect this mission should expect, that they're going to be chastised in some way. Whether it's going to be later on in their life, maybe it won't be until they're, highly advanced in years. But, so I put you in the world for nothing. I put you in the world for entertainment? You think I've put you in this world for entertainment and to acquire pleasure? That's the only reason I put you into the world. Is that honestly what you think? Wow. So you've just paid your money to go to a theme park and you're in. What rides are you going to go on first? Furthermore, if they don't take advantage of the gift that Hashem made available to them in this world, they're going to have to face the wrath of Hashem in the next world. Such people will regret having wasted their lives which they could have used to acquire and practice chokhmah, wisdom. Note, at this point, the author presents some verses from Tanakh to demonstrate the importance of chokhmah to mankind, as it says in Mishlei 2:6, Hashem is the one who gives wisdom. From his mouth comes da'at, knowledge, and tivuna, understanding. When Hashem gave life to man, he did it differently from all other creatures, as the Torah states in Genesis 2:7. He breathed into his nostrils the soul of life. Hashem not only gave man life, he breathed into man his spirit, and since Hashem is the source of wisdom, he breathed into man that source of wisdom. Every man has an infinitely deep reservoir of potential wisdom upon which he can draw. So you don't know how powerful you are. You don't know how strong you are. You don't know how much fortitude you have. You don't know how much endurance you really have, unless you get in a situation where you have to exert it. But don't try and sabotage yourself by ministering to yourself and throwing your arms up in the air with your doubts and verbalizing, I can't take this anymore. I did that only yesterday or the day before. I wanted to be home, but I had to go to the post office to pick up a parcel from for some reason got delivered to the post office, which is, a mile away. It's more than a mile away, but you know what I mean. And it was during peak hour, and I didn't know what this item was, and I'm like, I don't want to have to spend the weekend not knowing what it is, so I decided to run the gauntlet, and I was just caught in so much traffic, and the line went out. When I got to the post office, the line went out the door, and when I got to the counter, they couldn't find my item. It took them 20 minutes to find my item, and I'm like, and I was really starting to struggle, and I'm thinking, wow, how pathetic am I? This is nothing. Nothing bad is happening to me right now. Yet I'm ringing my wife, I'm complaining to her and going, this is what a hypocrite. What a fool. That's nothing. That's nothing. Listen to a Torah lecture. What are you worried about? You'll get home in time for Shabbat. Who cares? But it's funny. Maybe I was a bit tired. Every man has an infinitely deep reservoir of potential wisdom upon which he can draw. Hashem is waiting for him to bring that wisdom to the surface and apply it as situations arise. Actually, Hashem originally fills the reservoir with the wisdom of the Torah. The Gemara tells us that while a child is still in its mother's womb, an angel teaches it the entire Torah. When it is born, an angel slaps it on the mouth and makes it forget everything that it has learned. So for the whole sort of 9 months, there's a malach in there, a guardian angel, that teaches you the entire Torah. This is why it's believed that we have this indentation under the nose, it's due to the angel flicking us under the nose at the point of the baby exits the womb. and it's given spiritual amnesia, and it immediately forgets all the Torah that was learned. You might be thinking, well, why does the angel bother to teach us the Torah in the womb? Because the idea is that you're not actually learning the Torah, you're relearning something, and you'll find that it sounds familiar. And so, it's like the angel tells you the truth before you leave and get jettisoned into the world. That truth gets removed from you that it told you what it was, but, there's a potential to have that reawakened if you should merit actually coming upon the truth and actually doing something about it. Many people stumble over the truth and just keep walking. But you don't want to do that. You want to see the truth and you want to go, okay, I'm not walking. Hey, guys, I can't keep walking with you. I'm just hanging here for a bit. You guys can join me. You can keep going. It's up to you. I ain't coming up until I sort this out. By hook or by crook, I'm fixing this. I want to find out. I'm fixing to fix this up. And so you just do it. Okay, so what is the purpose of teaching it to him if he's going to forget it anyway? The answer is that he never really forgets it. It remains in his subconscious mind. By utilizing opportunities that arise in his life, he can draw upon and bring forth his wisdom with the aid of the Torah, so he can acquire the great gift of Chokhmah. Elihu, which is one of Job's friends, says in Job 32:8, but it is the spirit of man, it is the soul from the Almighty that gives them understanding. The spirit that comes, end of quote, the spirit that comes, I'll read that again. Elihu said, but it is the spirit in man, and it is the soul from the Almighty that gives them understanding, end of quote. The spirit that comes from Hashem causes men to have wisdom. This means that man is potentially full of wisdom that Hashem breathed into him. And Daniel said in Daniel 2:21, Hashem gives wisdom to the wise, and he gives dark knowledge to people who know understanding. It is, if a man utilizes, end of quote, if a man utilizes even to a small extent the opportunity to bring forth his potential wisdom, then Hashem encourages that fountain of wisdom to flow forth copiously like a spring from the earth. The more that man exerts himself to think and to bring forth what is in the depths of his mind, and the more Hashem rewards him, and the flow of wisdom develops into a great stream. And so we see this happen with Avraham Avinu. We see this, Avraham Avinu takes little steps each time, and then, and there might be little, but they're solid steps, and Hashem says, look, okay, he's taken a step, I'll take a step. He's taken another step, I'll take another step. I think we'll leave it there. That takes us up to where we are with the morning audios. So that's good. Page 45, ladies and gentlemen, of volume 1, the introduction of Rabbi Victor Miller's new translation and commentary of Duties of the Mind. Get a hold of it. Life-changing stuff. These works are absolutely mind-boggling. These will blow you away, some of the things that get mentioned here, and the way they're just spoken about so unapologetically, and he just tells you the truth. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. It's a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing day or evening, whatever time you're listening to this. Until next time, Hashem willing, bye for now.